Hi, and welcome to our CRE at Home Worship Seminars program. This is the first time we put our resources seminars online, so we really hope you enjoy them and find them practical and useful. The seminar you're about to see is brought to you by Lucy Grimble and is entitled Top Tips for Leading a Stripped Back Worship Session.
Hi, I'm Lucy Grimble, here to talk about stripping our worship back to basics with the Christian Resources exhibition. You can also check out my new song, Nothing Can Separate. Click on the link in the description below to hear more. And I've been asked today to share some top tips on how to do stripped back worship well. So more basic and simple worship. And for me, and I think for so many people, the pandemic has forced us to take our worship back to basics. On a Sunday morning at the church where I am worship pastor, I've been leading live during lockdown, but just me playing the keys and singing. And that has been a huge adjustment because I'm used to playing with a band on a Sunday morning and making a big sound. And then suddenly we've all been forced to sort of bring it back and make it basic and make it simple. But it's actually in that process I've found that these have been some of the most powerful times of worship for me. So I guess I want to start this tips session by saying that stripped back worship is not less than big band or big production worship. It is just as powerful and it moves the heart of God. There's so many biblical precedents for stripped back worship in the Bible. Think about David playing his harp up on the hills around Jerusalem. Think about Paul and Silas in prison, just worshipping with their voices. Think about the disciples in the upper room, gathering together to worship together. And those, I believe, were heartfelt, honest, intimate times of worship, but they were also powerful and world-changing. So I just want to encourage you that your worship is powerful. Your worship changes atmospheres, whether it's just you leading on your own or whether it is you with a whole band. Our worship, when it's from the heart, when it is pure, when it is honest, it moves the heart of God, and that's ultimately what we want to do. And I think the most important thing is in all things just to serve the Lord, making the best of what we have available to us. So I'm going to move on to some practical tips, and I'm mainly focusing this at people who have been forced to strip things back because of the pandemic, or people who are sort of finding themselves leading just themselves or maybe with one or two other people. So I hope this is helpful. So number one, plan your set and practice. And this might sound really basic, and actually I think this applies to worship, whether it's just one person or a whole band. The more you can prepare, the more you are going to reduce the anxiety and the uncertainty that maybe you would feel when you get up to lead if you haven't prepared. So think about your song list carefully. Be thoughtful about the songs you're choosing. Be honest about your skill level on your instrument. If a song calls for lots of riffs and lead lines, if it's got a complicated rhythm, a complicated time signature, lots of chord changes, and you want to do that song, which I really encourage you to do, make sure you've practiced, make sure you've been through it a number of times so that when it comes to the Sunday morning, you can just focus on worshiping, you can just focus on leading, and you don't need to focus on trying to remember the song or trying to think about what's coming next. This really, really helps me. I make sure that I practice, lots before a Sunday morning so that when I get up to lead, what's going through my head isn't, I can't remember how that song goes and how does the arrangement go? How does the structure go? I'm just thinking, okay, God, I want to worship you now, and I want to just lead people into your presence. So practice is so, so helpful. So that is my first tip. Number two, I would encourage you to practice the transitions between songs. Again, when you're doing stripped back worship, or if it's just two or three of you, transitions can feel awkward and clunky if you haven't practiced them and if you don't intentionally know how you're going to connect the songs together. What you really want to avoid is sort of awkward gaps in your worship where you don't really know how to connect to the next song. Intentional gaps are great. If you want to plan in some moments of silence or some moments of reflection, that's amazing. But I think what you want to avoid are sort of unintentional gaps where there is just a forced silence because everybody's a bit lost. So I think trying to practice transitions so that they can be as seamless as possible, and for the people worshipping along with you, they don't even notice it's happening and they can just stay in that place of worship, I think is really good. Some things that really help me when I choose a song in a key, I will try and choose the next song and pitch it either in the same key or in a relative key. And that means that I can quite easily flow from one song to the next. So for example, if I'm doing the first song in B flat, then maybe I'll do the second song in F, and maybe I'll do the third song in C, because they're all relative to each other, and it just means it's easy to flow between them. If you're more musically gifted, more musically talented, by all means, work out some complicated and interesting and juicy transitions between songs. But I think the main aim is to try and make those transitions as intentional and seamless as possible. Tip number 3. I would encourage you to encourage people verbally. Trying to worship through a laptop, as someone who's trying to worship along with you is a strange experience. It's probably quite a distracting experience. So I think it's really important to communicate with the people that you're leading and to encourage them along the way, encourage them to stay in that place of worship and to track along with you. You might want to literally encourage them to close their eyes, hold out their hands, do something physical, stand up. You might want to pray for them. You might want to share a scripture as an encouragement. But I think the more you can try and make it a sort of two-way or more interactive thing and encourage people verbally through the set, I think that really, really helps. Number 4, you might actually want to go even further than that and encourage people to actually remove distractions from the room that they're in. I lead a worship night with a friend of mine called Jake Isaac, and these are sort of intimate nights of worship in the round, 150 people max. And what we do on those nights is to encourage people to remove probably one of the greatest distractions that we all have in our lives, which is the mobile phone. So we encourage people just to turn their phones off or put them away for the whole night. And we say that we don't really want people to take photos. We don't want people to video the event. We don't want to see it on social media. We just want people to be in the room and to be focused on connecting with God. So you might want to try that with your congregation, with the people that you're leading. Just encourage them, we're going to worship for 20 minutes or half an hour. Maybe put the phone away and just focus on connecting with God and just make this time sacred and precious. So I would definitely encourage that. And the final top tip I have is to relax. When you're leading in a stripped back way, it can feel like a lot of pressure and it can feel like you're very exposed and very vulnerable. So it's so important that you enjoy it and that you relax and that you feel confident in that place. Things that really help me are to pray before I lead, or to get someone else to pray for me for the set. And then I'll often just sit at my keyboard and close my eyes and meditate on a scripture to remind myself that God is right there with me. And that just fills me with confidence, because I know if God is with me in worship, then, we can just have some fun. So, I would just encourage you, just do your best and try and relax and try and enjoy it. So those are my top 5 tips. I hope they're helpful, and I just really pray that you're blessed as you worship, whether it's in a stripped back way or whether it's with a full band. I pray that you just really grow in confidence as you worship Jesus and as you lead people into his presence.